My name is Laveen Bhular and I'll be presenting the module Laws Relating to Water Pollution in India. At the outset, it's important to ask oneself, what is water pollution and why do we care about water pollution? As we know, there are primarily two main sources of water. One is surface water, which comprises rivers, lakes, ponds, etc. And then there is groundwater, which is the subterranean water under the surface of the earth. Now, water pollution is said to have taken place when the pollution load in a water body exceeds the natural regenerative capacity of the water body. This is a very serious problem in India because of the contamination of sources of water supply for different purposes. This is because we use surface water as well as groundwater to meet our drinking water needs, irrigation needs, industrial needs, etc. What happens as a result of water pollution is that although water may be available for use, its usability is affected, and that presents a major problem. Now, there are two main sources of water pollution: point sources and non-point sources. What I mean by point sources is where there is disposal of untreated or partly treated industrial effluents from industries and factories or domestic sewage through our sewer systems. Non-point sources would comprise of activities like agriculture and the runoff resulting from such agricultural activities. There are also other sources of water pollution, and these include encroachments near water bodies, sand mining activities, religious activities such as immersion of idols, or dumping of municipal solid waste, construction waste, etc. Now, the objective of this module is to provide you with an overview of the different components of the legal framework relating to water pollution in India. We'll be looking at three main sources. One is, of course, the Constitution of India, then is legislation, also known as acts or laws, and third, the judicial decisions. And today, we'll be focusing on decisions from the Supreme Court of India. There are, of course, several other decisions from the high courts in the states, as well as the National Green Tribunal. It's also important to remember before we proceed that in addition to laws, we also have a very widespread policy framework with respect to water pollution. So we have administrative regulations, policies, programs, schemes, plans, etc. at the national level, the state level, and the local level, which may deal with public health or environmental quality, both of which highlight water quality issues. They may deal with uses of water, for example, water for drinking supply, for irrigation, for bathing, etc. But the problem with these administrative regulations, guidelines, policies, etc. is that they are non-binding in nature, unlike laws. Now, first, let's discuss something about the Constitution of India. There's, of course, no specific mention of water pollution in the Constitution, but Article 21 of the Constitution, which provides a fundamental right to life, has been broadly interpreted by the Supreme Court of India to include a right of enjoyment of pollution-free water environment. This was done in a 1991 case of Subhash Kumar versus State of Bihar and others. And the Supreme Court has also interpreted Article 21 of the Constitution to include a right to hygienic environment in a 1995 decision of Virendra Gaur and others versus State of Haryana and others. As a result of these decisions, although water pollution is not specifically mentioned in the Constitution of India, it has been implicitly included. Now, in addition to these rights which are provided under the Constitution, there are also certain duties. Part 4 of the Constitution, which talks about directive principles of state policy, has two such provisions which are relevant in the context of water pollution. The first one is Article 47, which says that the state shall endeavour to improve public health, and the other one is Article 48A of the Constitution, which says that the state shall endeavour to protect and improve the environment. Both health and environment are affected by water pollution and water quality, and therefore these two provisions of the Constitution also provides some guidance with respect to management of water pollution. Then there is the fundamental duty of every citizen laid down in Article 51 AG of the Constitution, which talks about protecting and improving the natural environment, including lakes and rivers. As I mentioned previously, surface water bodies include lakes and rivers, and both of these are seriously affected by water pollution in our country. The other important source of guidance are laws governing local bodies. Under the constitutional scheme, specifically List 2 of the 7th schedule of the Constitution, it is the states that exercise powers in respect of water, sanitation and public health. The 1992 constitutional amendments have led to the introduction of new parts 9 and 10 in the Constitution, as a result of which municipal authorities in urban areas and Panchayati Raj institutions or Gram Sabhas or Panchayats in rural areas have been vested with certain powers, duties and functions. And some of these duties and functions, they relate to prevention and control of water pollution, providing clean and wholesome drinking water to the residents, and ensuring distances between sources of water supply and latrines, for example, all of which will have direct implications on the quality of water that is available to the public. The other important source would be laws relating to parastatal bodies, laws governing cantonment areas, also laws governing development authorities. Needless to say, these laws are relevant in the context of urban areas. Coming more specifically to an environmental law which directly relates to water pollution, we have the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974. It is a law made by the central government, although under the Constitution, powers are given to the state government. In this case, the central government has exercised its power, which is vested in it by a resolution passed by state legislatures under Article 252 of the Constitution to enact the Water Act. The main objectives of the Water Act are twofold. First is to prevent and control water pollution, and the other one is to maintain or restore wholesomeness of water. As we have seen in the module on environmental law principles, two main principles which are being invoked here are the preventative principle and the polluter pays principle. The Water Act itself does not provide a definition of wholesomeness, but as we will see, a whole number of standards are laid by the State Pollution Control Board which provide guidance in terms of water quality determination. Now, the Water Act follows what is known as the command and control approach. What that means basically is that the Act lays down limits or standards of discharge of effluents into water bodies, and in case of non-compliance, certain penalties have been laid down under the Act. Coming to the definition, and the most important definition here, of course, is the definition of water pollution. Let's look at this in some stages. Now, water pollution is defined as contamination of water or alteration of the physical, chemical or biological properties of water, or discharge of any sewage or trade effluent, or of any other liquid, gaseous or solid substance into water, whether this is done directly or indirectly, as may or is likely to. So just water pollution does not have to have actually taken place, but the likelihood of water pollution occurring is also a situation where the Water Act can be invoked. It should create a nuisance, or it should render such water harmful or injurious to public health or safety, or domestic, commercial, industrial, agricultural or other legitimate uses of this water, or life and health of animals or plants or of aquatic organisms. As you can see, it's quite a detailed definition of water pollution under the Act. Now, in terms of application of the Water Act, it applies to water bodies, and the types of water bodies that it applies to are streams, and the term stream has been very broadly defined under the Water Act to include rivers, flowing or dry watercourses, natural or artificial inland waters, subterranean waters, sea or tidal waters, as well as wells. Now, the types of entities that are covered under the Water Act include industries, operations or processes, and treatment and disposal systems. It also applies to all persons, which includes individuals, industries, and municipal authorities as well. The types of effluents that are covered by the Water Act are trade effluents and sewage effluents, and both of these terms have been defined under the Water Act. It normally applies to the entire state, but the state government may restrict the application of the Water Act to specific water pollution prevention and control area or areas.